Okay, thank you very much. So now let's move on to the next topic, no? So we talk about the drivers of emerging infectious diseases. So hindi driver na ano, chuper, but kung ano yung factors that can influence the emergence of infectious diseases. Okay? So for this lecture, I want you guys to be able to enumerate and explain the different factors that can influence the emergence of an infectious disease and provide and elaborate different measures on how these factors can be prevented and controlled. So we have already defined EIDs, no? So these are diseases that has increased incidence, no, in humans, geographic or host range, or their impacts. So these diseases can challenge efforts to protect humans as prevention and control recommendations might not be immediately available. Okay, kasi syempre, bago na naman ito, di ba? So, hindi readily available agad-agad, no, na nandiyan na yung treatment o nandiyan agad yung control or preventive measure. So, emerging and re-emerging pathogens represent a constant epidemic threat to humanity, no? Not only for the public health consequences, but also for the economical, di ba? Social, political effects. Okay? That's why a major public awareness and preparedness would be needed, no, or fundamental in fighting emerging infectious diseases. Ayan, so throughout the years, no, ito yung mga list ng mga EIDs that we had. Okay. So emergence and re-emergence of zoonotic diseases may be any one of the following. Okay. So number one, it can be a known agent appearing in a new geographic area. Okay. Number two, it can be a known agent appearing in unsusceptible species. And number three, a previously unknown agent detected for the first time. So natural animal reservoirs are more frequently, they play a role as a source of new agent than the sudden appearance of a completely new agent in human population. Okay, so these are considered as new and emerging in zoonotic diseases. So emerging zoonoses are usually complex, no? They involve different modes or mechanisms at the molecular level, such as yung mga mutations like antigenic drift or shift, and even in the changes in the immunological status. So social and ecological conditions influencing population growth and movement, food habits, the environment, and many other factors, they all play a role or a very significant role very frequently in the emergence of zoonotic diseases in human population. So now let's talk about the different drivers of emerging infectious diseases. As we all know, there is no way to predict when or where the next important new zoonotic pathogen will emerge. But there are several factors that can contribute to the emergence of a new zoonotic diseases. That's why we have here yung naka-enumerate, no? Number one, shared ecology, socio-economic development, altered ecosystem, wildlife trade, urbanization, and livestock production system. Okay? So first, yung shared ecology. So the conditions or events that result in the successful crossover, no, of an animal microbe into humans are not well described. But emergence, no, this is often caused by changes to ecological or biological systems. Okay? So these changes include, yeah, no, number one, contact patterns of domestic and wild animals. Okay? So, for example, no, yung Nipah virus, as you can see here in the image, okay, this is the life cycle, no, or yung transmission of Nipah virus. Okay, so the virus came from the bats. Okay, so they like to go sa mga Nipah trees. Okay, so they feed on the sap from these trees. Okay, And since itong mga trees ito present usually sa mga areas kung saan nandoon yung mga taong nag-aalaga ng mga baboy. Okay? Yan. So ngayon na-transmit yung virus sa pigs. Okay? And then they served as a vessel, no, for the virus to mutate and infect humans. Okay? So ngayon yung contact patterns, no, ng domestic and wild animals allowed the emergence of this disease. And since again, itong mga domestic animals share ecology, no, share habitats with humans, or let's say hindi naman share habitats, no, hindi naman sila iisang tirahan, pero they have a close relationship with each other kasi nga they are being domesticated by humans. So ngayon na-transmit, no, yung disease. Okay? All right, second is direct human and wild animal contact. So this can be attributed with biodiversity loss. So this disturbs the functionality and the stability of ecosystems. Siyempre, pag nagkaroon ng disturbance, edi pupunta yung mga animals sa mga urban areas or kung nasaan yung mga humans, no? Pakalat-kalat na lang sila. Okay? Or pwedeng nagkaroon ng close contact yung mga humans and wild animals dahil wala nang matirahan yung mga wild animals. Okay? Right. So next, yan, altered species abundance or diversity. So when we say species diversity, this can also include diversity of insect vectors and pathogenic microorganisms. So kapag this increases, no, towards the equator. And according to some research, they found a correlation between the emergence of zoonotic pathogens and the diversity of wildlife mammalian species. No? So a good example here would be the hantavirus outbreak in southwestern US because of the changes in the abundance of infected rodents following changes in the climate. No? So this lead to the vegetation growth. So syempre kapag may vegetation growth, this would also lead to abundant production of rodent food. So dumami rin yung mga daga, no? So ngayon, mas mataas yung population nila, increased population. So mas mataas yung risk na makapag-infect sila, no? Mas maraming pagmumulan yung infection. Okay? I think yung hantavirus occurred, yung hantavirus outbreak, nangyari ulit siya sa China nung kasagsagan ng COVID-19, no? Okay, so next, yeah, let's talk about adaptability of animal pathogens, no? So basically, itong pyramid na to, it shows you the 5 different stages on how animal pathogens has the ability to adapt and cause infection to humans. Okay, so for stage 1, here, okay, so the pathogen is still exclusively infecting animals only. Okay, sa animals lang siya. But later on, no, as time goes by, we go to the stage 2. So the pathogen has been transmitted from animals to humans under natural conditions. Okay? But dito, wala pang human-to-human transmission. Okay? But when it comes to stage 3, and you can see, no, there is a limited transmission from animals to humans and between humans. Okay? So these are often severe and lethal diseases due to for instance, no, yung filovirus or the Ebola. Okay? Yan. So this is a good example of your filovirus. And then sa stage 4, animal disease that have sustained transmission between humans, no? So a good example would be your influenza virus. And then the stage 5, so a microbe that has exclusively infect humans. So humans only. Okay, like your measles and your syphilis. Okay? Okay, so next driver of EIDs would be the socio-economic development and altered ecosystem. So when we say socio-economic development, kaakibat na niya, no, or it is already associated with increasing demand for natural resources together with its byproducts. For example, ano ba yung mga byproducts na to? Water, wood, pulp, agricultural land, etc. And these things, no, have huge impact on our environment. Okay? For example, no, since merong increased demand sa mga ganitong products, there has been rampant deforestation forest fragmentation, and afforestation. So these activities are involve, no, these involve alterations in the natural habitat, okay, of animals. So this would lead to increasing incidence of infectious diseases, okay? So diseases like your yellow fever and Chagas disease. So overall, no, the biodiversity decreases with deforestation, okay? And this can lead to an increase in EIDs. Is for example, ito yung occurrence ng Oropouche fever. So the clearing of forests and planting of large cacao plantations, no, was linked to the emergence of this disease in Brazil. Okay? So kinalbon nila yung area, no? Tinanggal nila yung mga trees, pinalitan nila ng cacao. Okay? So Oropouche fever, no, is a tropical fever infection transmitted by biting midges and mosquitoes. So, yan, it involves yung mga sloth, okay? And then transmitted by these mosquitoes to humans, okay? So, ito na maintain siya ng mosquitoes, yung kanyang sylvatic cycle, okay? But they can also transmit the disease to humans. But it is the culicoides, no, or the biting midges that maintains yung human-to-human transmission, okay? Okay, so alright, balik tayo, no? So, kinalbo nila yung area, they implemented deforestation para palitan ng cacao. So, what they don't know is that itong cacao is a gustong-gusto to ng mga mosquitoes, itong specific mosquitoes na to, the Coquilitidia. Yan. Hindi ko na mabanggit yung scientific name niya na, but yan, it's venezuelensis. Okay? So, yan, pati yung culicoides, gustong-gusto nilang tumira sa mga ganitong area, no, with cacao plantations. Okay? So, ngayon, yan, dahil dyan, no, nagkaroon ng occurrence of the Oropouche fever. Okay? Okay, so, another thing, no, would be yung stress on water resources. So yung increased demand for food and meat in particular, when combined with demands for natural resources from industry and domestic consumers, no, and river damming for hydroelectric power, this can result in a large increase in stress on water resources. Okay? So the consequences of intensified agricultural production, for example, no? So this can include depletion and degradation of river and groundwater, reduced soil quality, and biodiversity loss as well. So yung direct and predictable effect of reduced access to clean water, especially for low-income families, is an increase in the risk of water-wash diseases and waterborne diseases. Okay? So we have mga diarrhea, gastrointestinal infections, respiratory infections, okay? Typhoid and hepatitis E, no? So there are also other unquantified risks, no, arising from this intensified or intensification of agriculture. So examples are pollution, no, which can contaminate fresh water, okay? Pwede rin contamination with pesticides and fertilizers, loss of biodiversity, and land abandonment by small-scale farmers. Okay? Okay, so next is wildlife trade, no? So bushmeat yan. So bushmeat is a meat of wild animals that is used for human consumption. So in Africa, no, people from rural areas have been hunting and consuming meat from bats, monkeys, rats, snakes, and other wild animals. Hindi lang sa Africa, no, even in other countries here in Asia. Okay? So, if you see mga TikTok videos, no, yung mga mukbang videos, 'di ba? Nakita niyo yung mga kumakain sila ng mga snakes, bats, and other animals, no? So this is considered one of their food and protein sources and source of income. Okay? So since farming domesticated animals is too expensive for them and impractical. So today, no, yung scale of hunting has increased, no, due to urbanization, and consuming bushmeat is considered as a status symbol for them. So kapag kumakain ka ng mga bushmeat, no, ay cool ka, ganyan, or mayaman, mayaman ka. Okay? Meron pang isang bansa, I think in China, yun nga na parang they eat fresh raw brain of monkeys. So yung monkey is kailangan um, tawag dito, bubuksan yung skull niya in front of you. At kapag may ganong practice ka, ibig sabihin, yon status symbol siya. Yun yung mga elites usually mga nakaka-afford ng ganon. Okay? So they eat the brain raw. Okay? So pasintabi po sa mga kumakain. No? Pero yan, isa sa mga tradition nila, yung mga ganyan. Okay? So itong bushmeat, no, it has also occurred in some areas, no, like the US and even in Europe. Okay, wait lang. Yeah. So here in the next bullet, no, it says that 6 million tons of bushmeat per year. It has been reported that up to 6 million tons of bushmeat are coming from the Amazon and Congo basin every year. Okay? So aside from ano to no, sobrang dami, no? So aside from being a threat to wildlife, yung bushmeat hunting and consumption is also considered as one of the reasons for emergence of zoonoses, no? Why? Because wild animals are reservoirs for different pathogens, and these pathogens could be transmitted to humans, causing zoonotic diseases. Okay? Okay, so here, no, HIV. So HIV or the human immunodeficiency virus is a virus that attacks the body's immune system. So if HIV is not treated, di ba, it can lead to AIDS or acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. And researchers believe that, for example, no, yung mga bonobos, chimpanzees, and other primates spread HIV to people hunting or butchering them, no? And this exposes them um, with their infected body fluids and meat. Okay? Kaya nakuha ng tao yung HIV. Okay? But there were so many theories no kung paano nagsimula yung HIV. Parang some theories also stated na may mga sexual intercourse daw ang monkeys with humans, or meron daw mga nag-experiment sa laboratory tapos kumalat yung virus. Maraming theories na pinaniniwalaan noon, no? But yeah, this is one theory, no, that researchers believe, no, that primates were able to transmit HIV because of hunting and butchering. Okay, na-expose sila sa virus. Okay, so another example would be the Ebola. So the Ebola virus was first discovered in 1976, no, near the Ebola River, kung na kilala na ngayon bilang Democratic Republic of Congo. Okay, so it has caused outbreaks in several African countries. And scientists, no, do not know where Ebola virus came from. But based on similar viruses, they believe that the Ebola virus disease, or EVD, is animal-borne, wherein the bats or non-human primates being the most likely source. So the virus first spread to people through direct contact, no, with blood, body fluids, and tissues of animals. So Ebola virus would then spread to other people through direct contact with body fluids of a person who is sick, no? Or has died from EVD. Kaya pati yung lamay, no, talagang kasama to sa control measure ng Ebola virus disease. So this can occur no, when a person touches these infected body fluids or objects that are contaminated with the virus. Okay, it can also get into the body through broken skin or mucous membranes present in the eyes, no, or in the oral cavity. So people can also get sick or get the virus through sexual contact with someone who is sick with EVD, or kahit yung mga naka-recover na, pwede pa rin ma-transmit yung virus. Okay? So the virus can persist in certain body fluids like the semen after recovery from the illness. Okay? So yung exposure no nung Ebola virus sa humans or exposure ng humans to wild animals has caused the transmission of the Ebola virus disease. So another example would be the SARS no, or severe acute respiratory syndrome. So this is another viral respiratory disease caused by a SARS-associated coronavirus. And this was first identified at the end of February 2003 during an outbreak that emerged in China. So the reservoir of the SARS coronavirus is thought to be the bats. Okay, but later on, no, it was concluded no that it came from the wild civet cats that are traded for food, and these are thought to have acted as an intermediate host and transmitted the SARS virus to humans through live animal markets. Kasi practice nila to, no, in markets in China. They sell live wild animals. Okay, maybe either for consumption or for companion animals. I mean, they treat them as pets. I don't know. No, but this has enabled the virus to be transmitted no from animals to humans. And one more thing no, one bad thing about this no kasi nga they are in the markets and different wild animals yun. And at the same time andun din yung mga birds, andun yung mga pigs, no mga live domestic animals which can serve as vessels for these viruses. At kapag nagkaroon ng mixing of these viral genomes, 'di ba? Can mutate, okay? Or it can get specific genetic materials. So, nagkakaroon ng bagong virus, nagkakaroon ng mutation. So, yun yung nakakatakot. Okay? Okay, so now let's talk about urbanization. Okay? So, we all know no, na pataas ng pataas yung world population. Okay? So, it is expected that between 2011 to 2050, the world population will increase by 2.3 billion or 32%. And this increase will be concentrated in urban areas of developing countries. Okay? So ngayon, since there's urbanization and at the same time increasing population, tumataas din yung demands. Okay? So, ang nakakatakot is that there is an increasing demand but there is no improvement in health and veterinary infrastructures of rural areas. Generally, no, cities offer better economic opportunities. We all know that, no? There is better educational opportunities, better living conditions, better nutrition, better sanitation, no? And therefore, better health than underdeveloped rural areas. And at the same time, it is likely to mean that in many low to middle income countries, health and veterinary infrastructures will not improve, or sometimes it may even deteriorate. So adversely affecting the likelihood of the early detection of emerging infectious disease. Okay? So also, no, because of urbanization, there's increasing demand in food. So the demand for food in urban centers will increase. And di ba, pag nag-increase yan, mag-increase in livestock and their products being transported over large distances. And this can increase the risk of spreading or amplification of EIDs. Okay? So next, alteration of consumer demands and dietary habits. So according to a study, researchers said that urbanization changes the human social cultural systems, which also includes changing consumer demands and dietary habits. So this can be connected through increasingly complex networks of rural and peri-urban farms, mga markets, distributors, agricultural workers, and the consumers. Okay, so now let's talk about the livestock production system. Kasi diba, it has been mentioned kanina kapag may increased demand, So increased livestock production system. So this involves intensification of the production, complexity of animal markets, and antibiotics and other practices. So let's talk about the intensification of production. Okay. So due to increase in global human population and economic development, there is also increased demands for livestock products, and it has increased dramatically over the last 50 years. So yung consumption of meat in developing countries has tripled since the early 1960s, and egg consumption has increased by fivefold. Okay? So high density of domestic animals is a form of low biodiversity. No, bakit kaya? Because this poses a particular threat for the spread of infectious diseases from farm animals to humans. So yung genetic diversity within an individual host species is important, no? Since genetic diversity would limit yung potential for devastating epidemics. Eh, kung iisa lang, no? Puro baboy lang, kasi isang species lang siya, no? So there's a high density of a single species, no? So kumbaga, it is low biodiversity. Okay? So yun, no? We take another, again, yung Nipah virus as an example. Diba? Bats as the reservoir host of Nipah virus in Malaysia. Okay? So this disease caused a relatively mild disease in pigs. Okay? But again, since yun yung kanilang practice kasi, no, sa kanilang area, ang mag-alaga ng mga baboy. Okay? So, alaga lang ng alaga. Okay? So, ngayon, maraming baboy, no? Maraming pwedeng pagmulan ng sakit ng Nipah virus. So, ito-transmit nila yan sa mga humans. Okay? So, it was a deadly outbreak, no, in Malaysia and even in Singapore from 1998 to 1999. So, during those times, no, Nipah virus disease is a newly described human pathogen. Okay? So, it reached a mortality of up to 40%. Another example would be your Campylobacteriosis. So Campylobacteriosis is an infectious disease caused by the bacteria Campylobacter. Okay? So it has caused an estimated 1.5 million diseases each year in the United States. So how do people get Campylobacter? So they can get this through eating raw or undercooked poultry meat or eating something that touched it. Okay? Or mga na-contaminate niya. So they can also get it from eating other food, no, like seafood, meat, no, and contact with animals as well. So that's why, no, yung mga clients or mga pet owners that feed their pets with raw meat, ano sila, high risk of getting Campylobacter, no? Kasi nga, papakainin mo ng raw meat tapos infected pala ng Campylobacter. So ngayon, kasi pinapaniwalaan mo na, ay mas gaganda yung buhok ng husky ko, ganyan. Mas lalaki yung husky ko. Ano naman sila, 'di ba? Carnivore sila, ganyan ganyan. So pinakain mo ng raw meat. Okay? Infected pala ng Campylobacter. Not only Campylobacter but also other bacteria. Okay? Syempre, ano ka, love na love mo yung dog mo, kinikiss mo siya, dinidilaan ka niya. So ngayon pwede ma-transmit sa'yo yung bacteria. Okay? So pwedeng ikaw yung magkasakit, no? At the same time, pati yung pet mo nagkasakit din. Okay? So yung highly intensive poultry production with poultry processing systems, this facilitated, no, this helped the cross-contamination of bacteria to the meat. Okay? Okay, so next, yeah, intensity and complexity of animal markets. So first, no, it is true, no, that food production has become a complex network of food value chains, and many countries, no, have started to tightly regulate live animal trade because of different zoonotic diseases like yung mga bovine spongiform encephalopathy, SARS, even influenza, no? But complex and poorly regulated food manufacturing and distribution chains still offer opportunities for disease outbreaks. So kahit sabihin natin na may mga rules and regulations pero pangit yung pamamalakad, pangit yung pag-manage, wala din lang, no? So yan, poor regulation of food manufacturing and distributing chains. Number two, yan. So markets as reservoirs and source of infection. So in endemic regions, no, live bird markets are frequently contaminated with highly pathogenic avian influenza A. So yung subtype niyan is yung H5N1. Okay? And contaminated markets can become reservoirs and the source of infection for poultry and humans. Okay? So, kapag pangit yung um, pag-control no, ng mga ganitong diseases, zoonotic diseases, yan, yung markets, this can be reservoir. No, nakakapasok pa din sa market yung mga ganitong meat. No, hindi na check. Wala sigurong strong National Meat Inspection Service. I'm not pinpointing people na baka pwedeng ganon, no? Or from the local authorities, no? Baka walang municipal veterinarian yung town or yung municipality. So, sino nag-check ng kinakain ninyong pagkain? No? So, wala. So, ngayon yung markets, they can serve as reservoir and source of infection. Okay? And then next, yung poor enforcement and compliance with regulations, of course, no? Kasi kung sabi ko nga, no, nandyan yung mga rules and regulations, no, pero hindi na-implement na maayos, it is not being implemented properly, and um, vendors are not compliant no, with the regulations, pasaway sila. Eh di wala din lang pupuntahan no, yung mga ginagawa nating rules and regulations. That's why it should be a two-way relationship. No? Dapat give and take tayo. Okay? Okay, wait lang. Okay, so how do we prevent and control itong mga ganitong situation in live animal markets? So number one, we should have separation of species. Wait lang ha. Okay. Yan, separation of species, no? Sabi ko nga, no, yung occurrence ng SARS dahil halo-halo yung mga animals din doon, no? Eh, pwedeng vessel kasi yung mga ibang animals for mutation of viruses. Okay? So, kailangan, halimbawa dito, poultry lang, doon swine lang, no? So, pwedeng ganon, no? Number two, avoid allowing animals to stay in market for more than 24 hours. Okay? Kasi nga pwedeng pagmulan ito no nung they can serve as vessel for mutation. Avoid exit of poultry animals to exit the market alive no. So kailangan make sure na mabenta na lahat or ipa-slaughter na. No, kasi nga pwedeng baka nakakuha pala siya ng sakit doon sa market. Okay? Okay, wait lang. Okay. And then next, improved cleaning and disinfection. So yung marketplaces nyo ba nagkakaroon ng cleaning and disinfection? So mahalaga din yun, no? Kasi may mga bacteria or mga pathogens that can be transmitted indirectly, no? Pwedeng naiiwan sa mga surfaces. pwedeng ma-transmit. And also, especially sa mga live animals, no, kamusta po kaya yung manure or yung proper disposal ng mga manure nila, no? Baka hinahayaan lang dyan sa palengke. Okay? And weekly rest days. So, kailangan meron ding day off, no, yung mga animals natin. Siguro, we can implement a specific day kung saan walang live animals na makakapasok sa market natin. Okay? Siyempre, para ma-prevent din natin, no, yung possible na risk of transmitting zoonotic diseases. Okay, so next we have antibiotics and other practices. So we already know this, no? This has been a topic, no, yung AMR or antimicrobial resistance. So when we say AMR, so this is a phenomenon occurring when organisms, no, change in ways that treatments against them are being ineffective. Okay? So we call these agents, these organisms na resistant as superbugs. Okay? And almost 40% of EIDs in Asia since 1940 has reports of AMR. So bacteria, no, in some areas show alarmingly high rates of resistance to antibacterial agents. And the recent emergence of um, resistant bacteria, like for example, yung NDM1, na tinatawag natin, NDM1 resistance genes, or the New Delhi metallobeta-lactamase 1 resistance gene, okay, conferring resistance to a last resort antibiotic. And its rapid dissemination, no, to other regions highlight the serious threat to human health of antimicrobial resistance. Diba, lagi nilang sinasabi yan eh. Anhin mo yung pera mo kahit sobrang yaman mo. Eh kung yung sakit mo pala, wala nang antibiotic na makakapagpagaling sa iyo. Diba? So wala din lang. It's because of antimicrobial resistance, no? Na kagagawan din ng mga tao, no? So, itong mga antibiotics na to kasi usually ginagamit sa livestock, poultry, and aquaculture. Saan sila ginagamit? So, number one, treatment against infections. Number two, preventives. Eh, itong number one and two ba, sinusunod ba nila yung proper dose? Eh, kung hindi, it can lead to AMR. No? And itong number three, itong controversial na indication for antibiotics is as a growth promoter. So basically, you use antibiotics as a non-therapeutic supplement, no, or as growth promoter. So this would involve, no, a prolonged administration of subtherapeutic doses. Okay, so this practice has an effect on the emergence and prevalence of resistant microorganisms in food animals, and aside from that, also in their environment. Okay, resulting in the excretion of antibiotics into the environment, no, where environmental bacteria may be subjected to antibiotic selection pressures. So it is clear, no, that the continued use of non-therapeutic antibiotics or antibiotics as growth promoters in agricultural industry that is rapidly increasing, no, in scale and intensity, no, ang taas-taas ng agricultural production natin. It has become a potential for becoming a very huge threat through the inability to prevent or cure disease in production animals and the consequences for human food security, as well as the transmission, for example, no, ng mga resistant foodborne bacterial pathogen to humans. So here, no, we have yung MRSA or the methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. So this is a swine-associated MRSA and is now contributing significantly to invasive disease in patients in some countries. So ito, no, this is a case of larva migrans. Pero at the same time, meron din siyang secondary infection, no? Methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus infection. Okay, so this is just an added slide, no? Inad ko lang. This is the bioterrorism. Okay? Let's just talk about it. Kasi after this, we're going to proceed na sa viral zoonotic diseases. No? But I just want you to know, no, about bioterrorism. So when we say bioterrorism, this is terrorism, no, form of terrorism that involves deliberate use or intentional release of biological agents or bioweapons. So ano ba itong mga bioweapons na to? So these are viruses, bacteria, fungi, or toxins. and they are used not to cause disease or death among human populations, food crops, and livestock. So this is an emerging potential threat to human population. So let's say, for example, di ba, a 100 kilogram of viable anthrax spores can kill 1 to 3 million people. Okay, so imagine. So it is as deadly, no, as the nuclear weapons. And compared to nuclear weapons, this is cheaper. Kasi pwede ka naman mag-culture ng Bacillus anthracis if you want, ba? If you want to kill millions of people. Okay? So that's bioterrorism. So biological agents can be spread through different routes. Okay? Through water, food, aerosol, through bomb or missile system, or through vectors or through water supplies. Okay? So example, no, in Francisella tularensis, this is a highly infectious disease na can be transmitted through aerosol. Okay? So it is capable of causing fatal diseases with doses as low as 25 colony forming units or 25 CFU. Okay? So we can categorize bioweapons based on the risk and public health impact. So category A, yan, biological agents that can pose high risk to national security. So it is a major public health. It has a major public health impact. Okay, so examples would be tularemia, anthrax, smallpox. Okay, next is category B. This is moderately easy to disseminate and have low mortality rates in the target population. But still, di ba, it can cause infection. So we have brucellosis, salmonellosis, E. coli, etc. And then category C, so these are biological agents that might be genetically engineered for mass dissemination and has high mortality in the target population. So usually these are newly emerging pathogens. No, we have the Nipah virus, hantavirus, and H1N1. And recently, we had an outbreak of hantavirus in China, and I think it was due to laboratory mishandling, if I'm not mistaken. I'll will find that article and I'll give it to you as a reading. Okay. So yes, I think that's it for today. Do you have any questions or clarifications